All right, good morning, everyone. I'm Larry Filippelli from Scituate, transitioning into Lincoln. And like Derek, I've been actively involved in this type of work probably for, since about 2002, so quite a bit of years. What I want to just support a lot of what Derek was talking about and just get into the legal aspects of this, because what Derek was talking about, the safety assessments, that's you have to complete that according to Rhode Island general law. And additionally, of course, as most of you know, every November, the superintendent signs off that all the school committee members have reviewed their school safety plans. So these are just some of the RIJL that pertain to that. So the commissioner has to report to the Speaker of the House that everyone has updated those plans by November 1. And I don't want to take a lot of time. I'll get through these slides really quickly. There's only a few of them. But then the 162123 tells you that the site safety reports, the assessments that Derek was talking about, those have to be done every 3 years as well. So I'm not going to go through what Derek went through, but basically it's a checklist, and it's very simple, straightforward. The issue that I have with all this is that it's going to be falling upon your superintendents, and it's going to be falling upon your building administrators to be sure this is done the right way. And what I try to drive home to everyone is that there, in the litigious society that we live in, there is a very strong legal component to all of this. As Derek mentioned, we all think, well, it's not going to happen here. The two incidents that I had in Scituate last year, yes, they were both technically a false alarm, but the bomb scare, we did receive a suspicious package. What was inside of it was not suspicious at all, but that triggered many, many different events. If we had not completed the assessment and that was a real incident and something really happened, or the second incident, which happened in June, we had what we thought was an active shooter that was planning to come up to the building. That was posted on social media. We interviewed kids, and that, you probably saw on the news, triggered quite a response from law enforcement. If either of those two things proved to be true, heaven forbid, and there was some tragedy, you can be sure that in the discovery process, what people are going to be looking for were the assessments completed, who completed them, at what time, how long have they been sitting around, and was the school committee aware of it. And so this whole scenario, as all of you know, can be pretty important. And so Derek and I presented this to the Rhode Island Association of School Business Officials, and a version was also explained to all of your principals at the RIAS meeting as well. So my thinking on it is, if anything gets subpoenaed, you want that all-hazard site safety survey to be completed. But is it going to be completed accurately, and who is completing it? So obviously you want your building principals to complete that, your director of facilities, most definitely you want law enforcement officers and probably fire personnel looking at it as well to be sure that it's all complete. So as we mentioned, every 3 years they have to be completed, and I just wanted to go over, I said this was going to be brief so we can get to the panel, but this is actually my E-Ride account. And so the Department of Ed, probably around the first or second week of March, actually put the radio button on your superintendent's E-Ride account so that you can check off, or he or she can check off, that those assessments have been completed. So I can tell you from being on the committee, like Derek said, there are 17 districts around the state that have completed all of those assessments correctly and accurately. I don't know if they've gone in and checked off that it's been completed, but that's something new, something that your superintendents need to be aware of, and it's just simple. It looks just like this. It's just school safety assessments. It's a little radio button. You click on it, you submit it, and you're all set. But it is under the school safety plans, which is down bottom left. So every November, the school safety team should be meeting probably September, October. They meet, they discuss whatever they need to discuss in confidence in their crisis response meetings. Then you typically have an executive session and you approve those plans. You get an update on those plans. I used to typically hold my meeting in first or second week of October once things settle down, and then I would report out to my committee briefly in executive session if there are any major changes. Just going back to how often folks meet, it's going to depend on your district. I know in Scituate we are a student support team at the middle and high school, and we have the benefit of having the middle and high school linked together in the same complex. So we have an entire team of school support personnel that meet every single Tuesday. We call it Tuesday morning meeting. And they talk about the high-risk kids, the kids that you should have your eye on, the kids that have some issues going on. And that's all hands. That's the SRO, school administration, school support personnel, your school psychs, your student assistance counselors, social workers, etc. So I just wanted to go through just a few of these brief slides just so to kick off the panel discussion.
So I was asked to just react or respond to some of the things that have been brought up in the presentation so far. I have been a member of the Lincoln School Committee for the past 14 years and a member of our district school safety committee for the past several years. I've lost track. In Lincoln, we have a committee that meets 4 to 5, perhaps 6 times a year. This year more often because we were dealing with some significant concerns that came about as a result of Parkland. Just on a personal note, back in the mid-'70s, I was teaching high school in Buffalo, New York. And for those of you who may have been around at that time, it was a pretty tumultuous era in American history. It is history in my mind now. And what's ironic to me is that at that time, we had bomb scares literally every other day. Every other day. So we were evacuating the building every other day, and sometimes more than once a day, to the point where we got a message from the city fire and police department that from this point on, ignore them. You have to ignore them because they're all pranks. That was another time. We can no longer ignore them. They aren't pranks. And even if they are, we don't know that they are, and we can't assume that they are. So in 40 to 50 years, things have changed quite a bit. And I think one of the most important things that I've learned from my experience on our safety committee is that having done an assessment, and we actually did a third-party assessment, an independent assessment, at the request of our budget board after Sandy Hook, because we were making some requests through capital for safety improvements. And they asked us to have somebody else take a look at it. So they weren't happy with necessarily or satisfied that our own assessment, internal assessment, was adequate. We did spend quite a bit of money on that assessment, but the fact that it was an outside entity that came in and helped us prioritize those things that we could do immediately and then things that we should do over time actually helped fund that. I have to say that one of the things that makes Lincoln a little perhaps different than some districts, and we're all different, is that we've had the benefit of a capital reserve fund for many years in town, a dedicated fund set aside for capital. So we don't fund our safety improvements out of our operating, out of general operating. They go through the financial town meeting in a resolution process, and so over time we've been able to accomplish some of the more expensive things through that process. It goes to the value of having a capital reserve. And I know we've had presentations at RIASC before about how important that is, using a phone-based app to help us identify the location of an intruder. We've been able to do Sully ports, so we do contain anyone coming into all of our buildings, at least for time. We've done drills. We have, many of you are familiar with ALICE. We do ALICE along with the standard lockdown drills. I'll tell you this year that one of the things that came up was our teachers were asking us for a policy that would direct them when to use ALICE and when to use the traditional lockdown. And that opened a whole new conversation around the table. Our safety committee includes police, fire, all of the principals. The people that are missing from that table are the psychs, the social workers, the SROs are present. And we have separate committees for bullying and some of that other stuff. And the more I think about it, the more I think we all should be connecting the dots and be meeting, together to address that side of it. But one of the things that came up as a result of this, we need a policy. The school committee needs to pass a policy so teachers know what to do when. And I think that it gets to the difficult aspect of this conversation for us as school committee members, that we can't direct people to do anything in a crisis situation. We need to prepare them to respond. We need to make sure that we've provided them with resources and a toolbox, but in the end, to reassure them that we understand that everybody's going to do the very best they can in that situation. And I think for me, that's what I learned from Parkland, at least what we know about Parkland, that in many cases people did the very best that they could to save lives. And so we aren't doing a policy, but we are providing training. We're continuing to do that, and then monitoring it. So one of the things that comes with a plan or a procedures or strategies, having them in place, having a plan in place is making sure that it is monitored, that we train, that we drill, and that we don't get complacent about that. And I suppose the good and the bad news is this, as the captain said, these events happen, they continue to happen, and so we really don't have a chance to get complacent because we are reminded on a regular basis how much is at stake. So I think for me as a school committee member, just participating in that school safety committee at the district level and having a sense of the kinds of conversations that are going on all the time, actually it's not only reassuring, but it's actually inspiring. Really says a lot about the degree to which, at the district level, from the superintendent down to the building level principals, down to the fire and chief, the fire and police in our community, that this is a concern. And it is one of the things that we can come together on without a whole lot of debate. So that's just a few things that I had to say about what I've already heard.
Yeah, I get to do the Monty Hall thing here.
So I'm Kristen Stringfellow. I'm the superintendent in South Kingstown. And when you said, it was either Captain Borak or you, Dr. Filippelli, that 17 districts are in compliance, and we all know that there are many more, double that in fact, in the state of Rhode Island, I saw folks sort of concerningly look at each other and say, are we in compliance? So I can attest to the fact that South Kingstown is in compliance. That's one. I'm pretty sure that Scituate is in compliance. If I'm a school committee member or superintendent in another district, is there a list that can give me comfort in knowing we are in compliance? And if not, what's the mechanism to make sure that we're in compliance?
Okay, so, and because of RISA, I've talked, I don't know how many times, right, telling...
So I staged that because I'm the president of RISA.
Yeah, Derek has come to speak to RISA. I report out to RISA monthly on school safety initiatives and things that Captain Borak and I are working on. Probably 2 or 3 times a year, I tell superintendents about these safety assessments and that they need to be done. Captain Borak has spoken to high school principals, etc. So our group, obviously everything on that group is confidential, and so we have access to the state police server where all of those are uploaded. So it's a secure upload and it's a secure review process. So our committee broke into groups and we each took 3 or 4 districts and we assessed the districts that we were assigned to, and we reviewed all the best practices, et cetera, of those districts. So as of right now, and obviously the first districts to come in were the people who sit on the committee. We also have, director of facilities on there, et cetera. So we saw those first, and then the other ones started to trickle in. So now that you've heard Captain Borak's presentation today and the legal follow-up and some of the in-district follow-up, you need to implore your superintendents that work needs to be done. because once our group becomes, I'll call official, and we've been trying to get some teeth for years, so once that happens, and once the safety assessments are already law, and the review of the crisis response is already law, there's probably going to be more teeth behind even the safety assessments, and if you want to speak to that. You don't want your district called out saying absolutely nothing was done, because in the event of a tragedy, you want reams of documents saying that. I mean, we all know we can't predict student behavior. We all know that tragedies happen, and sometimes they come out of absolutely nowhere. We know that that happens. But what did you do to try and prevent it? Where are the meeting minutes? Where are the safety assessment plans? How often was it updated, et cetera, et cetera? How often do you meet? Who are the members of your group? All of those things are going to be called into question in an event of a tragedy in your district. The superintendent's going to be called into question. The school committee is going to be called into question, and certainly the building administrator is going to be called into question. So, to me, it's extremely high priority. I'm not really sure, to get back to Chris's question, I'm not really sure how it's not that high of a priority and how we're missing the other districts on our database.
I have a question about the opposite. We know the safety plans are confidential. What is the recommendation for communicating with parents in the community about safety plans? Because after Parkland, we get a lot of questions. And people actually were posting on Facebook all the time, like exposing vulnerabilities too. And we don't want that, obviously. So are there recommendations for what to tell parents?
So I would clearly get the message to our parents that we are working going forward. You could say some of your minor vulnerabilities. You don't want to get into the whole thing, but I would just say you're working on it. You've done what's required of you. You meet with your safety teams. You've addressed certain issues, just to ensure them that you're going in the right direction. Because like I said earlier, some districts we do really well, others we don't. Some of us have a lot more money than other districts don't. So you can only do what's asked of you, and to ensure the parents, I'd want to know as a parent that that school district is doing what's required of them and continually going forward. We meet once a month, once a week, whatever it may be, going forward to ensure the safety of our students.
I would just add that we have an opportunity to have some of that conversation annually through the budget process. So, for example, however you fund your capital, there are capital expenditures, and if safe, warm, and dry, and the subsequent work on minimum standards for maintaining our buildings continues to, because we understand that's coming next, you'll have an opportunity to talk about the things that you need to do or want to do just through that process, so that it isn't directly related to an event. I think sometimes the conversations we have about addressing safety issues come through the capital conversation, and they're not related directly to an event, and it becomes less about exposing our vulnerabilities and more about improving our facilities. So I think we do that. We have those conversations anyway. So I don't see that necessarily as breaching the confidentiality of the report.
As Captain Boric mentioned, we had a few situations in Scituate which obviously prompted a lot of questions. I found, and the social media piece is something that we're all grappling with. It seems there's two benefits to that. One is that, well, it's a benefit and one that's not so good. One is that people just expect this immediate response. So they expect that I'm going to go on blast on social media, and then they expect the school department or the superintendent or the building principal to actually respond to that, which of course we're not. However, for the parents who show a deep concern, an appropriate concern, typically I try and reach out to them one-on-one, or reach out to them if they email me, et cetera, and I'll have a conversation about not what our confidential plans are, but assurances, letting them know that absolutely we are in compliance. You can expect to see this, and I think that helped parents quite a bit when we were going through the situations in real time while the state police were converging on our schools. In real time, what I did was I communicated quite a bit through our, parent information system, whichever one you have, and communicate in real time. You can expect to see this. Pickup will be here. If you are picking up, you need to have. I will update you again as soon as I have more information. And what we got a little bit caught in the crosshairs and got some criticism for were, well, you didn't get the message out fast enough. These folks are literally going through my school with assault rifles, clearing every classroom. And folks want immediate real-time updates because that's what social media teaches them. They teach them, let me go on blast, and then a bunch of people will respond to me. So the school department should be responding that fast. From the inception of the incident to my first message was 45 minutes. Not bad considering I had law enforcement converging on my district and roads were shut down and everything else. So I think you need to have the intestinal fortitude just to say, you're going to get your information, but you need to have a plan of how you're getting that information out. But I think that updated information is what helps the most.
Captain Boric, I was wondering if you could share us your thoughts and opinion on the ALICE program, if you think all districts should be using it.
So I like to teach best practices. I think ALICE is a good program with some of the things they have, but I don't like a systematic approach to any situation, which I kind of feel ALICE is. They tell you A, B, C, D, E. If you, as a teacher who's only trained on it once or maybe a couple times, you skip B and C, how well you're going to succeed because you don't have that level of training. I like this simple. Mine is kind of the run, hide, fight type of thing where you evacuate, lock down, and you fight as a last resort. I'm giving you two options. I don't really like the evacuation immediate. There are a time and a place for that, but I can't tell you what you need to do under that particular situation. So quite frankly, when at Cumberland a couple weeks ago, I still had teachers asking me, well, if this happens, what do I do? I can't tell you what to do because I'm not in that situation. I like just keep it really simple. What are my options? Keep it simple options, and it's A or B, and the last resort is C, right? So I'm not saying ALICE is a bad program. ALICE is not really being taken in the state of Rhode Island because of our quick police response. We're fortunate, like I said earlier, with our police response is relatively 2 to 3 minutes. Not every district, but most districts. And ALICE is a great program for maybe out west, down south, where the police response is 15 minutes away. So it's just my opinion. Like I said, there are good things in ALICE, but I like to keep it really simple. If you don't go through a level of training, you go over it once or twice a year, I'm giving you simple options. And if you're in a panic state of mind, I'm making it real simple for you. Like I said, with the other program, it's just a systematic approach, and I fear that someone's going to panic if they can't do one of those steps.
Yes, thank you. I have two questions. One is pretty simple. Do you recommend, Captain, safety vests on all personnel when an alarm or something comes up so that they're easily identified?
What do you mean by who'd wear the safety vest?
Like all of the administrative people and the teachers?
Just thinking top of my head, I probably would not, because they would be targets. If I'm a student and I know who my important people are, then I may try to target them in the event of that situation. People who are the students in our schools know who those administrators are, or more so know who the principal is and other safety people. So I wouldn't want to put an additional target on them. Knowing that us in law enforcement, when we come in, we have a target on us because who we are. So I would probably recommend that that does not happen.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have something? Larry?
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback on that a little bit. No matter how many years that I've been doing this or how well trained or knowledgeable, when we had the active shooter, alleged active shooter last year, I'm walking around the building with my administrators because that typically was our protocol. You know, the school administration stays there while things are being evacuated to be able to communicate, et cetera. I had a SWAT team come around the corner and say to me, "Sir, you need to get into an office or we're going to consider you a hostile." Okay, you know, so I just, you know, so I'll just go in the office and wait for Derek's response and tell me, you know, what I need to do. So just to piggyback on, even the administrators need to follow the protocol because it's their scene. You know, and I know that you need the superintendent and you need your building principals to help run the operations and get communications out. But when they arrive, it's their scene, and you really lose your power as a building administrator, et cetera. They need to take control of it. We need to support them. So,
Just one other thing Larry spoke about. He said it took him 45 minutes to get the message out. Larry wanted to get out a little earlier. He asked me, and I told him no. We're not getting our message out because who's monitoring the social media? I have no idea. So why are we going to tell them what we're doing? From a tactical aspect of it, not good. I understand the parents want to know, but he clearly came to me and he said, "When can I do it?" I said, "I will let you know when you can get that information out." So, you know, he took the heat for it. I told him to blame me. That's fine. I know he didn't, but, you know, because we don't know who. It's much like when the media arrives, right? We want the media far away because we don't want them televising what's going on, right? So.
All right. The second question, Captain, I'm going to direct it to you, and the others can say what they like. The time that elementary students are most vulnerable is during recess. So do you recommend that all recesses be indoors?
No. So we're not going to live a scared life. We're going to live a prepared life. And I say that quite often. So we just need to have a plan in place. If there is a vulnerability or something out there, where is our points of refuge, our safe areas to go to at a school? Do we have that communication from inside the school to outside the school? If there was an event, either outside or inside, so we can communicate that, that's important things. We just have to live, like I said, a prepared life, not a scared life. A lot of times when I give my presentation, people look at me or come up to me afterward and say, "You must live scared life," because I tell them different stories, you know, things I've done in my lifetime to prepare myself, and that's not the point. I'm not scared, but we have to be prepared, so absolutely not on that.
One last one.
Just because nobody's brought it up yet this morning, guns in schools. Is law enforcement in the state of Rhode Island unified on this issue? Where are we going with this?
All right, so I was waiting for that to come. I asked Larry if he wanted me to talk about it, and I knew it would come up. If you don't know, it was in the media. I testified into the House Judiciary Committee last week that I am not a proponent of weapons in our schools. It came up of concealed carry permits. It came up about the concealed carry permits. The NRA was quick to jump on it. I knew it would come. This is my reason for it. The level of training that we have in law enforcement, whether it's shoot, don't shoot, shooting under stress, target acquisition, what are our targets, and more importantly is weapons retention, right? If I am a concealed carry in our schools, or I am a teacher that carries in our schools, you don't have to worry about a weapon coming into our schools because it's already there. And you have 2 or 3 students who want to take that teacher out to grab a weapon, it's right there. They could be, and I said this, the most proficient shooter. They could be a better shooter than me. They could go to the range and they shoot an unbelievable target at target practice. They don't go anywhere close to the level of training that we do in law enforcement to, under a stressful situation, to be able to be successful. And I even said this, and I was sitting there in uniform testifying that if I were to come in my uniform, my nice boots and breeches that we wear, and I come in with a gun, the only thing that teacher or concealed carry permit person's going to see is my firearm. Because they don't have the level of training to look at the whole picture to ensure, and they're going to shoot me. Not only am I worrying about the threat that's in the school, I'm worrying about the threat of anyone else who's carrying. It's called tunnel vision. We fight it all the time in law enforcement. We train it so you don't have tunnel vision. Tunnel vision essentially is looking at what the threat is and not seeing what is around us, right? We do it in car chases all the time. We have to fight with our law enforcement officers that when we're chasing someone at 90 miles an hour down the streets of a little town street, we have to be able to be aware of what's around us and that we can't possibly pursue under circumstances. So I testified, I will continue. I have publicly said last year at a conference of about 500 teachers that if teachers carry in our schools, I'm not coming in because I don't want to get killed. So that's where I stand on that.
Round of applause for our panel.